Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Secretary General. His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, distinguished Honorable Governors of the Bank, Honorable Alternate Governors of the Bank, Dr. Adesina, the President of the Bank, the Vice Presidents of the Bank, Executive Directors, Secretary Generals, Senior Management and Staff of the Bank, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome indeed and good morning. Welcome to this 56th Annual General Meeting of the Board of Governors of the African Development Bank and the 47th Annual Meeting of the African Development Fund. I am honored and indeed grateful and blessed for the opportunity to address this most distinguished gathering. Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, please accept a special thank you for your gracious presence by video and the unflinching support to the African Development Bank. I was looking forward to hosting the entire Africa Development Bank delegation in Accra. However, our camaraderie will have to be in a virtual format for the second year running. For better or worse, COVID-19 has changed our habits and fundamentally disrupted our way of doing things. Undoubtedly, the environment in which our bank operates has changed dramatically in the past year. Regardless of our present location, the key task is to rebuild a resilient, confident, peaceful, prosperous continent underpinned by strong financial institutions with relevant data, knowledge, products, convening power, and an ADB with a capital base to promote economic and social solidarity. Our bank, distinct in its role, has to be at the center of Africa's build back through targeted support to tackle Africa's developmental challenges and lay the foundation to respond to future challenges. The renewed strategic and indeed moral focus at a precarious time in the world's history, our history. Unfortunately, for the first time in 25 years, Africa is experiencing a recession brought on by this unexpected pandemic. According to various estimates, Africa's GDP contracted by estimated 1.9 to 3%. In comparison to the fiscal deficit rose to 8.7% and average debt levels jumped to approximately 66% by end of year last year. What is clear is that now is the time to build a more inclusive, comprehensive, comparable, transparent, and better understood global financial architecture. With this, we'll continue without this, we'll continue with this lasting economic and debt crisis across many developing countries. It is wrong to conflate recent news about the vaccine with evidence of a fairer, adequate global response. Less than 1% of sub-Saharan Africa has been fully vaccinated, with a population of 1.3 billion. Africa as a whole has received just 41 million of the 2.6 billion other doses administered globally. Unfortunately, the result is staggering and maybe shameful to a degree. With 85% of vaccines administered in high and upper middle income countries, with an average of 68 doses per 100 people in high income countries, compared with nearly 2 doses for 100 people in Africa. Africa is being left behind, and we are staring down the possibility of a lost decade, where the economic trajectory of Africa pulls further away from the rest of the world. By 2050, colleagues, the continent will be home to a quarter of the global population and more than half of the world's young people, 850 million. If these young people do not have opportunities, there will be an increased likelihood of resource conflicts, migration, and terrorism. This is sobering. Now is our opportunity to avoid this fate. Just as the Bretton Woods institutions rebuilt and reshaped the post-war global economy after World War II, the global financial system, as we reimagine it today, has the potential to shape economies and lives across the world for decades to come for a more inclusive and prosperous world. At a summit of African leaders in Paris last month, His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo also advocated and supported establishing an African stability mechanism and an African liquidity and sustainability facility, akin to the European Stability Mechanism. The African Stability Mechanism will be a permanent firewall for Africa to safeguard and provide instant emergency access to financial assistance for countries in financial difficulties. The Liquidity and Sustainability Facility could also underwrite a more effective market in African debt that reduces the high liquidity premium developing countries pay for sustainability-linked investments. Taken together, these innovations can pave the way for a new global financial system based on equity, sustainability, and collective prosperity, what President Emmanuel Macron dubbed possibly a new deal for Africa. Critically, we must also enhance the ability of regional financial institutions to lead our economic recovery. The historic $115 billion capital injection into ADB from shareholders is timely, but we must go further, as is evident now. A well-capitalized AfDB offers the continent a better path towards development than global institutions like the World Bank and IMF. The Africa Development Bank will be critical for building resilient economies in a post-COVID-19 Africa. As we advance building back greener and better, will require Africa Development Bank to show leadership to address three critical categories of risk, namely the risk of greater pandemic resurgence, which will affect African countries disproportionately, the risk of reduced capital inflows because of the perceived economic effects of the pandemic resurgence, the risk of lasting economic damage from the pandemic exacerbating poverty and inequality within African countries. The capital we need, there's a real urgency for us to pull in capital and support critical investment while giving renewed impetus for job creation and economic diversification. I believe initiatives such as the Africa Development High Five and the launch of programs that promote our continent's young entrepreneurs will position us to respond to the challenges of supporting inclusive growth and the transition to green growth. Excellencies, we must irreversibly entrench the position of African Development Bank to lead the charge in Africa's build back and confront historical injustices, including risk premiums, illicit financial flows, and a tectonic shift of the global financial architecture. Why are we here? But to create the most credible financial institution that would ensure that we work in a counter-cyclical way. When historians write about the 21st century, they'll judge policymakers, shareholders, stakeholders, and relevant partners by both our actions during the pandemic and our choices that follow. If Africa emerges from COVID-19 with old inequalities unaddressed and new opportunities unrealized, our shared sacrifice would have been in vain. I must indicate that we must take steps to consolidate and irreversibly entrench the position of Africa's premier bank to lead the charge in confronting these historical injustices. In doing this, the genuine support of the members of the Governors Bureau, namely the Governor of Austria, serving as first Vice President, and the Governor of Niger, serving as second Vice President throughout the period, must be commended and appreciated. We'd also like to thank non-regionals for the support in maintaining our AAA rating. I also want to express my gratitude to all governors for contributing to the results achieved in recent months. I'm equally thankful for your continued and principle-based flexibility on matters relating to the effective operations of the bank. The principal objective, of course, of our bank is to be counter-cyclical with 100% exposure to this continent of high risk. But we cannot leave this responsibility and be myopic with regards to our traditional role. We must engage, we must understand the SDR, so reallocation to us. We must really look at the ADF in a way as to get more resources for the continent. The Africa Stability Mechanism must be examined. These are all important departures from the past. So let us use these annual meetings to commit to rebuilding a healthier, more just, and more sustainable continent. Let us also pledge to put sufficient political will and resources behind this commitment. The time for action is now, when our experience of the pandemic and the lessons we can draw from it are fresh. We will say something from one of our major philosophers in Ghana, Reverend Amu, Asem Yidika Hinanobeka, Ejuma Yidiye Hinanobeye. This has to be said. Who will say it? The work has to be done. Who will do it? Who is up to the task, as Paul said in Corinthians? So a new, better normal is upon us as a group. We must act boldly to make it reality. Thank you for your attention, and God bless us.